Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts where today we have ourselves a track from an act named Nightbird Casino titled LYNX, and if we switch over to here we have ourselves a track on the screen here on MusicBee. Now they do have websites and social media, and this is not the first time that I reviewed Nightbird Casino's music. I've actually reviewed quite a fair bit of this stuff over the years, a few albums. Speaking of which, apparently they do have a new album coming out later on in this year, 2025. This is the single off of that album. The first single, as I understand it, titled LYNX. And we're going to listen through it from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. And just before I get into it, just letting you know, we're going to be giving this song an overall score, a rating based on various sort of musical criteria. But for now, let's go. Let's do it. What do we got? Reverse takes with dynamic range and a bit of hiss. Kind of like a tape deck stuttering or something like that with strings. Nice to have the guitarist coming in though at this point with the arpeggios.
Feeling it coming, left foot and downward. Gravity's twisting, pixels are ruptured. My eyes are now hearing different angles. Where is the structure?
Nice ping pong delay to the vocals.
Why is there something rather than nothing? Always existed, sublime and no motion, simple as mortal, trying to come home. One solipsistic carbon-based life form, absolute horror, absolute knowledge, deja vu, deja entendu.
It's a very tight mix. There's not a lot of headroom, even though there's dynamic range showing at the start.
Arms outstretched, 7 by 7, existence forever, in a room in November. I'd rather be nothing than be this something, when it's only just you. I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. Why is there something rather than nothing? Always existed.
I mean, it's a phenomenal texture how aggressive it is. I'm just not sure how to approach it.
Why is there something rather than nothing? Always existed, sublime and no motion.
Okay, that was kind of it was a very unique, almost, what do you think about this one? And then we're going to talk about it more in the conclusion. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Nightbird Casino, titled LYNX. Now, just before we get into proceedings, I gave this song an overall score of 8 out of 10 based on the various musical criteria on the screen here. I thought a lot of this was done really, really well. The only reason the production didn't get an 8 was simply because I was like not sure if the lack of headroom in some of the louder parts of the track was deliberate or not. If it was, then it's an 8 practically. But yeah, still a very, very good score. In terms of what the track is about, if we switch back to here, I've been looking through the lyrics kindly provided by Nightbird Casino, and there are some trippy lyrics. Feeling it coming leftward and downward, gravity's twisting. Pictures are ruptured, my eyes are now hearing different angles. Now, I know that the lynx is the cat. I know a lynx is a cat. And you look at the artwork here and you can kind of see a cat, but maybe it's like a different representation of the lynx as an animal. Maybe the lynx is like something like a comparison point or an anchor to kind of show how our entire sort of like worldview is affected, like our view of a lynx is like that, you know, from our perspective. I had to check out what solipsistic meant. Based on sort of like egocentrism or something along those lines there. So it's our own perception of reality. Why is there something rather than nothing always existed sublime and unblushing? Almost like we're proud that the thing that we're looking at, wondering why it's there, is proud of itself, you know? Like it's looking back at us. Maybe these are conversations that the individual is having with us. Absolute horror, absolute knowledge. Knowing more is potentially the downside or detriment of the situation, with ignorance being bliss. Why is there something rather than nothing with the chorus? Arms outstretched 7 by 7. There is imagery and discussion going on within these lyrics. I don't feel like I have all the background for. I mean, it could simply just be just a really creative endeavor, which of course it is. It's music, right? But I feel like regardless, it's definitely interesting subject matter on lyrics. And then be this something when it's only just you, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. So is it simply that like our worldview is skewed and our perception of it is, and maybe we know too much, but simply we know that when we're with this person that we feel alive regardless of what that interpretation is. And then of course, yeah, music and lyrics by James Moore, vocals, guitar, bass, synthesizers, pianos, effects by James Moore, violins, Joy Lynn, violas, Maria Grigorieva, and then drums by Glenn Wellman, from Real Quiet Music published by New Delays. So yeah, in conclusion, looking through that, I'm not sure how to interpret it, but I nonetheless feel that it could simply be about one's own perception of the universe around them being sort of like dissolved, or like kind of looking into how alternative it is from anything else. Looking outside our own belief system, wondering if we have the true knowledge of it, etc. I feel like I could kind of go on a tangent and sort of like ramble on a bit more, but I'll try to keep it reasonably succinct. I think sometimes it's better to not necessarily have the whole understanding of it, simply to give it more time to sort of absorb. But in terms of an actual sort of like analysis, I think if we start with the vocals, right? So I think the vocals were done really well throughout this piece. I appreciate what we're trying to sort of like do in regard to allowing the other instruments having their time in the sun. But simultaneously, I feel that the vocals on the main lead, as well as some of the backing vocals as we had throughout the later parts of the track, were done really handily. We explore our range well, we're confident in our head and chest voice there. We navigate a complex harmony, as well as a lot of different time signatures really neatly, and the words come through clearly, and we have a presence that is never seems like it's overshadowing anything else and seems incredibly important. There's absolutely no filler there. There's like a ghostliness to the sort of like ping pong or slapback delay there that you have on the vocals, where they kind of seem like an old-timey kind of track from the mid-20th century or something like that, or even it kind of reminds you of some of the stuff that the Killers do on their sort of like vocal tales at some point. I feel like it's a conversational tone as well in terms of expression there, so we're allowing ourselves to almost work through what we're going through. Occasionally we call out, but a lot of the time it's simply walking through our own thought processes and trying to examine the reality around us and make sense of it. There are some really intense tones and textures going on with the additional vocal layering near the end there, just a visceral kind of grit and distortion to it, which I think is just a really interesting touch. I like the fact that we are allowing ourselves to play with different styles, like in different layers and overdubs there. I just feel like it has an extra kind of angst to it, like maybe that is the depravity speaking with us in alignment or something like that. I'm not sure. Maybe that is the LYNX, you know. Either way, it's fascinating material, and I feel like it's just nice to have that sort of development throughout the piece here. So I feel the vocals in regards to layering, explosion, and technique, etc., all handled really neatly, and we have a good awareness of the rest of the track. So with the vocals out of the way, we simply have the structure of this track, and quite honestly, certain elements kind of feel like a fever dream, but not in the way that's a detriment. I think that the structure never stays in one position for too long. There are all these different segments, different verses and choruses. You go back to a familiar place, but there are a lot of interesting sounds within this piece that diversify and add peaks and troughs to it as well as interest. There's never a part of the song where I felt there was filler, that there was unnecessary to have this component there. It was a journey and adventure you go on whilst you're hearing the story that's been put forward there. They don't do the chorus enough times for it to become too much. And ultimately, yeah, I feel like there's enough stuff going on instrumentally to counter too much kind of emphasis on the vocals. There's a good equilibrium there. I mean, in terms of what's actually going on with the instruments there, you simply have a really sort of intriguing production decision at the start to have those kind of reversed string takes at the start, kind of stuttering like they've been sequenced there. The hiss of a vinyl player moving forward as you go through the nightmare. It's a really fascinating choice there, just the way it builds there. That's why I was cautious about my comments on the ceiling or the headroom with the production there, because I feel like it was a deliberate decision there, and I'll probably end up changing it to an 8. So if you see a 7.5 that was turned to an 8, just that's basically the assumption you'll make, is that was changed because of that. But I think it was so beautiful after that kind of uncertainty with the reverse takes to go into those arpeggiated guitar takes there with the way the notes resonate and kind of loop over each other there. It was just cool to transfer to something that, while still very sort of like ambient, kind of just provided more of a kind of like a sense of body to it. Like you were like, oh, this is more musical now. I see we're going into the song. And I think something that's really well handled is a little bit kind of tippy. So wow, wow, wow on the sides there. We explore the stereo field really neatly, and we do not leave that till later on. We're aware that it's apparent that we need to keep the listener involved, and we do things to kind of interact with them on that level to keep things fresh. And so by the time we get the first sort of drum fill going in to kind of like introduce that part with the bass and then the vocals popping off on the mic there again with those root delay tails, it's just really quite succinct, despite the fact that over a minute has passed. It doesn't feel like a minute's passed there. You're kind of sitting in that environment that they've made, and you're kind of like awash in it, and you're expecting more context, but you're happy to sit there as they take the time. And then when we get into the next section there with a really kind of like kind of synths get in with a fuzziness, and it's almost kind of a little bit discordant, or very sort of, again, fever dreamy-ish. It's illustrating a sense of psychological tension, perhaps. It's great how we use those uncomfortable sounds to illustrate that despite how peaceful a lot of the primary or first introduced components are, that there is a bit of edge to it as well as we go through it. It insinuates that things might not necessarily be getting better. And for that to have a different chord progression or difference in the way we do the bass lines or even the key signature necessarily, just states immediately, oh, this is a different chapter, this is a different angle, we're gonna have to sort of like look into that. And the fact they discuss different angles and they have the music reflecting that is really neat. I love the variety of different drum beats they have. We explore the quarters, the eighths, the sixteenths really well, and we also, I've mentioned this initially, but just across this entire first couple of minutes and towards the end of the track as well throughout, we play with different time signatures, and we have like 7/8 or 5/8, and like I'd have to go through and sort of list them one by one, but a lot of music will stick with a very sort of like familiar 4/4 or maybe even a 3/4, or maybe even they'll stick with 5/8 or 7/8 or 5/4 7/4 the entirety of the song. But we're not doing that here. We're not taking the listener's attention for granted. We're aware that that they need to have diversity or variety there, but then also we're trying to sort of communicate a sense of dislodgement potentially from our foundations with the lyrics, and that is kind of with the kind of to and fro of the drums. I think that's represented well. But for the drummer to be able to roll through those different grooves and chops and be able to sort of sequence them like that is fantastic. And for the guitars and all the other instruments to sort of pop along inside that. With some elements like the synths I mentioned, they're kind of trippy ones. They're whole notes, but you don't want to have everything playing the same rhythm anyways. The unison rhythms are fine on certain occasions, but the entire time. You just need to have contrast. And you have there's like backing vocals, like lady vocals or something that's like a sub layer in the background, which kind of add like a paddish kind of affectation to it, which is really neat. There's a very pretty sound to it. And as you go through it, there's other synths and lead elements and other sort of like different ingredients, and you delicately tiptoe your way through it. I want to sort of give a shout out to the harsher textures, the distorted vocals I was talking about before, and how they add a sense of menace to it, you know. It's got the softness of some of those vintage tones in that part there near the end, but then you've got that kind of crass, kind of brash, kind of sizzle to it, the kind of edge to it. And it adds a sense of disillusionment and confusion to it. So it's a phenomenally beautiful track that I think has a lot of parts of it that are trying to create these really incredible major, minor, and extended harmonies there with the way they arpeggiate. But then you've got other elements there which are trying to sort of rip at your kind of eardrums a little bit and add a sense of like callousness to it, or not necessarily callousness, but like trying to make it sound cold or like unfamiliar or uncomfortable. And it's just creates a sort of experience of like a split in the middle, like an inner conflict or turmoil. And I just feel like that's art. So well done. Variety of different drum grooves with the other instruments going through different time signatures, and just because of the way it's been produced, it has a consistency to it. But yeah, just a lot of really fun ideas that have been included within this piece, and I'm stoked to have had a chance to listen through it. It's great. It's very experimental. I just think having different sort of like riffs or sort of like bass lines or chord progressions per part sort of distinguishes and separates them. But to have this sort of dreamy resonance and reverb tails across a lot of it, not just from a production standpoint, also with the instruments, and with it's just really clever. So yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately the sound of the instruments, the choices made with how they're presented, is a lot of the mood or the vibe or aesthetic that it has. A lot of the fundamentals of music and composition are adhered to, and overall it's just a really comfortable, competent instrument performance where they're clearly very sort of like, they feel safe to push the boundaries, and I think that's really important. Production-wise, I think it was handled really eloquently. There's a sophistication to it. I now think that it was definitely a decision to kind of choke it a little bit in the higher end there. The stereo field is well fleshed out. This thing's all over the place. Not all the time, because it's dynamic range. Things build up slowly from the start there. But even getting those reverse takes there to kind of stutter like that in sequence, it shows a really sort of fundamental understanding of that sort of part of things as well in the post. The vocals weren't overproduced, neither the backing vocals, things simmer in the ether. The music is a wash, and just again, the reverb delay tails there. No resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum, and it's nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression limiting is handled. I genuinely like this song. It's one of the more unique pieces I've heard recently, and that is a positive thing. The last thing you want to hear from feedback from someone when they hear your track is that it sounds like somebody else's. So I hope that Nightbird Casino continue this with the rest of the new album. But thank you very much for watching my review of this latest track from Nightbird Casino, titled LYNX. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via their various social medias. And it's been on digital streaming platforms as well. Actually, as of the 17th of September, I'm glad that I caught that. It's out on the 17th of September. This track in particular, the album presumably coming out later on. But stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SB Reacts. Spiderhands out.